Melania Trump has a new video out today featuring some surprising comments about abortion rights.
Individual freedom is a fundamental principle that I safeguard. Without a doubt, there is no room for compromise when it comes to this essential right that all women possess from birth: individual freedom. What does my body, my choice really mean?
CNN has tried to interview the former First Lady ahead of the release of her memoir, but her publisher responded with an unusual demand to CNN, a $250,000 price tag. CNN's Hadass Gold and I broke the story together today. Hadass, good to see you. So help our viewers understand from a media perspective how unusual a demand such as this is with such an incredibly high price tag nonetheless.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Most legitimate news organizations would never pay a public figure, especially the spouse of the Republican candidate for president, for an interview. Full stop. They just would not do that. Most news organizations have rules against any sort of payment to political organizations or to a candidate, so they would never pay for an interview with the spouse of the Republican candidate for president. And CNN has not and will not pay for such an interview. Now, in the past, media organizations have paid, especially when it comes to licensing photos or trying to get interviews with people who are involved in things like scandals or murders or the like. But paying for something related to politics, that in particular crosses essentially all of the media ethical boundaries. Now, a former First Lady being paid for a speaking engagement or for a book advance, that is not necessarily unusual. But Melania Trump is not just the former First Lady. She is also the spouse of the Republican candidate for president. So it is very unusual also that her team would send such a request and such a high amount for requests to a news organization. And let's be clear. Now, the publisher now says, after we reached out to them, that this was a miscommunication. But it's very clear in the conversations with CNN and in the contract that we've seen that they knew who they were dealing with, because the contract very clearly lays out that it's CNN that the contract is with and that it is for an interview. And I would like to stress there were several backs and forths between the publisher's team and CNN before this contract was even sent. So I will say that in their statement, the publisher says that neither Melania nor anyone from her team knew anything about the NDA, and the document that was sent reflected an internal miscommunication. This is coming from the president and publisher of Skyhorse. They went further and said, had CNN signed the NDA, in the normal course of business, we would have approached Melania's team to discuss specifics of the interview, essentially. Now, that is also unusual. So what, CNN would have signed this, which would have been agreeing to pay, and then they would have discussed the specifics of the interview? I will say that Melania's personal spokesperson, as you reached out to them, they declined to comment. Melania has been interviewed by Fox News twice, actually, within the last couple of weeks. But Fox News said in a statement to CNN that they did not pay any fee for the interview, including any licensing fees for this. But just all of this coming from a supposedly professional team for Melania Trump, this request to a news organization. You and I both spoke to not only journalism ethics experts, but also experts in the realm of First Lady. They all said this is completely unprecedented and very, very unusual.
And we should note, even that the publisher I've been in touch with says that Melania Trump didn't know about it. $250,000 is the exact same amount that she has been paid for other things like appearance fees back in 2022 for several events, and around that amount for an event just this past year. So just putting that out there. Hadass Gold, thank you so much.
Melania Trump is breaking with her husband on a key issue for voters in this election: abortion. Of course, we know former President Trump takes credit for appointing the justices who helped overturn Roe v. Wade, sending the issue back to the states. The former First Lady, though, makes clear where she stands in a new video as she promotes her upcoming memoir.
Individual freedom is a fundamental principle that I safeguard. Without a doubt, there is no room for compromise when it comes to this essential right that all women possess from birth: individual freedom. What does my body, my choice really mean?
CNN's Kristen Holmes joins me from the battleground state of Michigan. Kristen, Trump himself, Donald Trump, has been all over the map on this issue. Do we expect him to respond to what his wife is saying there?
Well, look, it's unclear, but obviously there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, this is an issue that Donald Trump himself has had a very hard time navigating. We've been in this campaign for nearly 2 years, and he still has problems talking about abortion. To be clear, he is the architect of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, but at the same time, he knows that this is politically harmful to him, particularly among moderates, among women, so he often avoids it in his campaign speeches. He refused to answer questions until this week as to whether or not he would veto a national abortion ban if he was reelected. He finally said this week that he would do that. But at the same time, it's still Donald Trump. And he has sought time after time to get credit while trying to avoid the topic for the overturning of Roe v. Wade. This was him at the recent debate.
For 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it.
So these Melania comments seem to undercut something that Donald Trump at times has said was one of his signature achievements while in office. And if you ask some of his advisors, they say she's just not a traditional former first lady, that she just does her own thing. But Manu, just to show you the context here, I mean, this is coming at a time where she's been almost non-existent on the campaign trail. We will see if he addresses it today on the stage in Michigan. He's slated to be talking about the economy, but as we know, it is Donald Trump, so he could talk about anything.
Yes, yes, he certainly can. It'll be interesting to see if he does say something about that. Thanks for that, Kristen. And our excellent panel is back. What do we make of this? I mean, the fact that we have not seen Melania Trump really this campaign. Suddenly she's back and now dropping this bomb of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, it appears to be potentially a play to help her husband with some moderate voters, especially with women suburban women who he hasn't necessarily done well with.
Coordinated, perhaps.
Right. I mean, I would think it would be coordinated, despite the fact that they may say it's not. And, although, again, I was just in the swing states of Arizona and Nevada. They both have abortion ballot measures this year, and there are differences between the two in terms of how much they're going to galvanize voters. But in Arizona specifically, it looks like it could very well motivate a decent amount of voters, and potentially that could translate into more support for Harris. I think a lot of those voters, though, are already a bit baked in. I don't know if they're going to necessarily believe Melania's pitch to them, especially when it conflicts with what Donald Trump has said and J.D. Vance's past support of a national abortion ban.
Why have we not seen her much on the campaign trail?
That might be a bigger question that we could fill an entire hour with. But I'd say,
even at the Republican convention, typically the first lady, future first lady, speaks, right? I mean, she was there, right. Not much. We didn't see much of her.
No, she's not been a crucial part of the sell to the Trump base this time around. And I think what we're seeing here, I'm going to borrow a line from Jessie J and say it's all about the money, money, money. There's a book coming out. It's her book. It's coming out next week. This will obviously juice publicity and sales and interest in the book and coverage of the book. That's a piece of the timing of this. I certainly don't think this is going to hurt former President Trump, because nobody thinks that his wife or his running mate or anyone except for him is making decisions. And he's already made the decisions. He nominated the Supreme Court nominees. He's said he supports this being an issue for states to decide. And while he once was a pro-choice public figure, that was many years ago, and he has been on the other side of that coin.
You mentioned the book. CNN has a new story out just this past hour about how Melania Trump apparently asked for $250,000 for a CNN interview on her book, according to the report. 2 months ago, CNN reached out to Melania Trump's book publisher to request an interview. After several exchanges, they came back with this unusual demand, asking for $250,000 as part of this. CNN did not sign that agreement, just for the record there. Days later, after a separate CNN journalist asked about this, the publisher said it had sent the payment demand by mistake. Of course, there's been some reporting, too. She appeared apparently at 2 fundraisers of the Log Cabin Republicans earlier this year. Our colleagues also reported and she was paid $237,000 for a speaking engagement. It's unclear exactly how she got that money as well.
Look, I mean, to me, it sounds like
Or
a
who paid for
potential.
that, I should say.
Right. It sounds like a potential speaking fee request. I mean, this is just it's impossible to imagine another former first lady, from Nancy Reagan to Barbara Bush to Rosalind Carter to Laura Bush, any of them, not sort of acting like this. I mean, the speaking fees are unheard of in this respect. Setting that aside, I think the abortion comment is strategic. To Lauren's point there, it sounds very much in the lines of, I'm not saying she doesn't believe it, but to have this come out now is certainly very interesting. It could muddy the waters perhaps a little bit in terms of the gender gap, but one thing is clear, on the right side of the former president's flank, even though some anti-abortion activists don't necessarily like some of his language, they liked his policies and his Supreme Court nominees. And that's what matters.
Yeah, all right, we shall see. Muddying the waters, what Trump has been trying to do on abortion.
For sure.
Really since
Maybe
Roe was
strategic,
overturned.
right.
This very well could be.